Welcome to another in-session film and welcome to embryo Norton Disney. Now, since I've joined Corda, we have had quite a lot of requests for me to come up to this complex and do a couple of films. And what better week to do it than now? It's mid-August, it's nice and sunny, it's nice and dry for once. And as you can see, we have kick-started the trip with a bite. Now for this particular trip, we're on Billy's Lake. Now of all of the lakes on this complex, this one I would say suits my style of angling the most. I've fished here a couple of times before in the past. This lake is the biggest lake on the complex, 27 acres in size, large header carp, and what they respond to really well in here is 3 rods on a spot with bait over the top. So I'm going to focus on getting this one in, and I'm going to show you exactly how I would approach fishing up here at Norton Disney. They are on that nibble, brothers. Can do the bites on here when you're on them. As I always say, if you get a double take, like what's just happened here, always focus on the one that you're playing. I've just bent down there, just tighten the clutch up ever so slightly on that one. And I'm going to carry on playing this one in. So I'd rather concentrate on this one, hopefully get this one safely in the net, then turn my attention to the other one. And this actually looks like a common. You know, of all the times I've fished here, I've never actually caught a common from here. That'll be the first common from here, that one will, on the old yellow plastic corn. There we go. That's number 1 in the net. That's the session started. Now we'll turn our attention to bite number 2. Still kicking off. Well, this one's just kited to the right slightly. Now, a little tip. If a fish starts to kite one way, a lot of people try and apply pressure the opposite way. Now, what this actually does is it makes the carp pull against the pressure that you're putting on. So what I do, you know, having fished a lot of busy places where you're sort of tucked in between people, is if a fish starts kiting, actually aim the rod at the direction it is kiting at. Keep the rod low and just gently wind like I'm doing now. And they come back round just like this one's done here. So it's well worth noting that. I see so many people pulling to one side to try and get the fish to turn. Obviously, I'm not saying if you're fishing towards a snag and it's kiting towards a snag, aim the rod at it. You know, you want to try and get the fish away, but certainly in open water when they've got a lot of scope to move in, aiming the rod to the fish is actually a very good way of bringing them back under control. It seems like we've got this Billy's Lake carp back under some form of control. Lovely watching them in the clear water, isn't it, rolling around. Okay, oh, Billy's Lake mirror. Hopefully he's in the net. It's looking likely. In we go, what a start. 2 on the board, lovely. Ha! Just like that, there were 2. Easy with the barbless, isn't it? I'm just getting the rods back prepped again. The fish are sat down there, they're in nice deep water. It is quite warm today, so we need to find a nice area to handle these fish as well. Don't want to move them too far from the water's edge, and they're certainly not going to be out of the water for any length of time. Give them a 5-minute rest. They're proper scrapping here, these fish. Get the rods back out, but yeah, what a great start to the trip. And this is what I love about Billy's, you know, it suits the style of fishing that I enjoy, and it's accessible to absolutely everybody. You know, I've turned up here this morning, I found my spot, I put some bait out. We'll talk more about exactly how I found the spot in a little bit. Put some bait out and I'm catching fish straight away. And you know, that's not just this peg that I'm in here now. All of these pegs around this lake, you can achieve the same result from every single one of them. Very, very simple fishing. As I always do, keep it simple. And I just use what I know works, because I know it works everywhere that I go. And why change something that isn't broken? So yeah, I'm gonna get these rods back out, have a little change of hook bait. I had 1 on pink then and 1 on yellow. So I'm gonna try white now, just to give it a little go, see what that does. It's quite heavy, that is. Well, here he is, the first one glistening away in the sun. This is actually the first common that I've ever caught out at Billy's Lake, and what a lovely fish it is. Well, over 20 pounds, such a great stamper carp in here, and the one that followed this up is a really, really nice mirror. So I'm not going to keep this one out too long. I'll get a few shots of this one, slip him back, and we'll have a look at that mirror. Lovely. Lovely. That'll do for starters. Well, here we go then, carp number 2, and what a lovely scaly mirror this one is. There's so many lovely carp right across this complex, and Billy's Lake in particular is full of loads of carp just like this. This one was the second part of that double take, and yeah, we're sort of nearing the midday part of the day now, the hottest part of the day, which is never normally the best time to get bites. So what I'm going to do is when I put this one back, I'm going to put another sort of half a bucket, maybe 15 to 18 spoms out over the spot, and try and draw them down, because there's a lot of fish cruising around on the top. And even though you can put one zig out, I don't want to be fishing with a zig. I want them down on the bottom, because ultimately that's where the bigger carp are going to be sitting. But there you go, bite number 2, carp number 2. Off you go, mate. He's gone. So we just slipped those couple of fish back. Great start to the session here at Billy's. It is getting really warm now, hence the reason why I've retreated back to the bivvy in the shade. But now is a really, really good time to answer a question that I get asked so much. And that is, what is my thought process when I get into a peg, whether that be a venue that I fished before or a venue that I've never seen before. Now, this is obviously something that will be different for every single angler, because every angler will see something different when they arrive into the swim. Now, the way in which I go about it when I arrive into the swim is I very, very quickly eliminate what water isn't mine and what water I can't fish to. Now, what I mean by that is if I'm in this peg like I am here now, or if I'm in a peg, say, at Linear Fisheries for argument's sake, the pegs are quite close together. Now, straight away, I want to be working out where my left boundary is, where my right boundary is, and what my sort of distance boundary is, because what that then allows me to do is to explore that piece of water in front of me without the need of having to cast outside of the parameters of that area. Because as we all know now, carp fishing is so busy, and if you do flick just outside of your swim and you find that sweet spot, by the time you thought about moving and packing up and going into that peg, somebody has already gone in there. So like I say, first and foremost, you want to find the parameters of your peg. Then what I'll look at is the weather conditions. Is the weather going to change whilst I'm here? Will the weather that's going to change hinder how far I can fish? If the wind's due to change and it's due to blow in my face, but when I get into the peg it's off my back, I won't go at maximum range. I'll fish at a distance where I'm able to carry on fishing accurately and effectively throughout the whole duration of the session, because that is very, very important. Whenever you go into a peg and you start a new spot, that spot is the area where you want those carp to feed. But if after 24 hours you've had to change your spot, say for argument's sake the wind's off your back and you're fishing at distance, then the wind blows in your face, because the fish that you're fishing for are behind the spot that you've already found. But when that wind changes, you're asking those fish to not only come closer to feed on the new spot that you found, but they've also got to get past the bait that you've already put in. So make sure the area or the distance that you're fishing will suit the conditions throughout the duration of the trip. Now, another thing, and this is probably the most important thing, is people say, how do you know what spot to fish? Now, you can read so many different magazine articles and you can listen to loads of different people telling you that they found a small seam of this, a little bit of this and a little bit of that. When in reality, what I'm looking to do with my fishing is find an area that I'm happy that I can present my rigs over, whether that be smooth silt or gravel, or if there is a little bit of siltweed lying around, somewhere that I know that if I've got a rig that's in my armoury that will present over that, I am happy to fish that area. Because ultimately the area that's out in front of me, the spot that I'm looking to create, is with my spom rod by putting bait out. I want those fish to home in onto that spot, and I firmly believe that over the course of time fish will feed on any given bottom. All they're after is they're after the bait that you're putting out. Don't get me wrong, it might be an occasion where they prefer to feed on the silt as opposed to the gravel, but if I know that I can put my rods out and I'm happy with exactly how they've landed, I know that they're presented over the substrate that I found, I know that once them bobbins are clipped on, that there's a very, very good chance that one of them is going to rip off. So the area that I've chose to fish here at Billy's is just over 100 yards. Now, as you can probably see behind me, the sort of tree line margin on the far side that you would use as a visual sight marker for the day and for the night is very, very flat. And there is only one area where the trees really do dip down. Now, 9 times out of 10, whatever lake you go to, the most prominent marker on the far bank in front of you will probably be where most of the anglers have fished. And it's a sensible move to fish there, you know, because it will be an area where the fish are used to seeing bait. And not only that as well, again, something that is vitally important, not only can you cast to this feature during the day when it's nice and easy and we can all see what's going on, but at night. It is a massive advantage at night if you've got a real prominent marker to cast to, because you know then, provided your rods are aiming straight at it and you've got tight lines, your accuracy throughout the hours of darkness is going to be absolutely spot on. And that is one of the biggest things when it comes to building a hit of carp. It's all right getting the odd few bites during the hours of daylight, but when it gets to night, you want to be making sure that you're fishing as effectively as you possibly can be. I was just thinking to myself, middle part of the day, gone quiet, maybe have a little snooze, but no. The right-hander is just ripped off. And interestingly as well, the coots are proper dive bombing me. And I've had it on quite a few of the waters that I fish. Definitely the fish and the birds, they work together. You know, I think the disturbance that the birds are making, the sort of greedy side of the carp are thinking, well, you're not having that. So in they come, and yeah, they're feeding together. So sometimes birds diving on your spot isn't always a bad thing. Kick him right off. Kicking off more than Bradders. And he do kick off. It's gone all the way round in like a complete 180. And it's nearly behind me now. Well, it's nice that bit of breeze. Big bone people like me don't like this sort of heat. There we go, another one. Well, there we go then, carp number 3, another absolutely pristine Billy's Lake Mirror. Now this one actually came right in the heat of the day when I least expected a bite, but since this one's gone in the net, I've got the rod back out and they're out there showing, and they're slicking up on the spot as well. So I don't think it's going to be long until another fish is in the landing net. But there you go, what a great start. 3 fish in absolute blistering heat, but it just shows if you get the bait out there where they want to feed, they will feed whenever there's bait in front of them. Right, he's lively. I'm going to get him back because I'm going to catch another one. On that other rod. The beauty of using pellets in your mix is you can see exactly what's going on out there. Now I'm using mono here because you can't use braid, but the pellets are like the sort of next best thing to using braid. Obviously if you're using braid you'd be getting the line as the indication that the fish are there. But if you have a look out there now, the oil slick that's coming off of them, now there's no birds been over that spot, there's no nuisance fish in here so to speak. The only thing that can be churning that up out there is carp. So when you're fishing with mono with a tight line, obviously you are getting line as the fish are constantly brushing around your rigs. It doesn't register it, you know. Mono and the registration on mono isn't the greatest, but I know now that there's carp feeding out there. So if one of them hasn't gone within the next half an hour, I'll definitely put more bait out, which again is another question that a lot of people ask, you know, how do you know when to rebait? And it is such an open-ended question really, you know, there isn't really a definitive answer to it because it all depends on what lake you're fishing. If I was fishing with braid, I never got a slick, but I was getting liners and I never got a bite, that would tell me to put more bait out. But now I'm obviously fishing with mono, I'm fishing out into the middle of the lake, I have just had a massive flat spot come up over me, I'll leave it for half an hour, something may have come in and disturbed it, there might need to be a couple more fish come in until I get a bite, but I'd leave it now, like I say, around half an hour, and all I'll do is I'll just introduce another sort of 3 to 5 spoms directly over the top of where I'm fishing in hope that that's enough to sort of bring the carp back round and to feed. But yeah, it's a very exciting way of fishing when you've got a little ripple like this and you do get that flat spot. It's still pinging up there now, so I know that there's fish over that spot. All them rigs are prime on it, ready to rock and roll, so I reckon that the next bite is pretty imminent. So I've just wound the rods in after them being out there for a couple of hours after that last fish. And I've just seen one show right next to the baited area, which is sod's law really when you reel the rod straight in. But I've clipped them back up and I'm going to put them back out there ready for the evening. You know, the sun's just about to dip behind the trees now, the temperature will start to fall, and I think these fish are going to go on a little bit of a rampage. Now what I'm going to do with the rigs is I'm going out with 2 of my tried and tested long IQD rigs, a rig that I've caught so many carp on from multiple different venues all across the country and indeed Europe. But on one of the rods, I'm going to put out a helicopter presentation with a short boom, again fished on a spinner, a rig that's probably more fashionable and is used a lot more up here at Norton. What I want to do is almost have a mini match, you know, fish it against 2 of the rigs that I know work so well, which is my long IQD rig, like I say. So that is the plan as I go into the evening. 3 rods back out on the spot, 1 on a helicopter with a short boom on a spinner, the other 2 with trusted long rigs back out into the zone, another 15-20 bombs over the top, and we'll see what the evening brings. Helicopter. Well, it would appear that the rechuck and rebait has brought a bite on. Well, I'm not sure if it's that or the fact that it's dropped about 10 degrees in the last half an hour since that sun's dipped down. But interestingly, I've got a feeling this might be on the helicopter rig, which those 2 rods are still out there. Now, I did have a double take to start with, so it's not like one of those couldn't go. But yeah, I think this is on the helicopter rig, which is interesting. But it could be that the fish have just been off to the right and that's the first rig that they've come into contact with. But I'm not going to make excuses because it has gone off. But the wind has changed ever so slightly now. Yeah, as that sun dips down now, it is cooling down quite a lot, which is much needed because let me tell you, today has been an absolute scorcher. I'm probably stood here looking like a great big pig spinning around on the hog roast, burnt to a crisp. But we keep trying, and we are in to another Billy's Lake carp. Here we go. Here we go now. Well, the first one on the helicopter rig. Don't really know what to make of it. Kind of didn't want it to go, but it's gone, and we've got another carp in the net. The bottom bit, this way. Well, you've heard of the phrase like buses. We waited a little while for one to come along after the initial sort of action, so to speak. And I've just recast that short helicopter rig, and I knew one of the longer rigs would soon go. And the left-hand rod is pulled up tight, and we are in to yet another Billy's Lake carp. It's actually nice now to be stood out on the end of this platform. The sun's just about to dip behind the trees, and it is bearable. We haven't had much of summer, but we've certainly had most of it today. And I think we've got it tomorrow as well. One of the really nice scaly ones. Bit of, on the old D rig, never fails. Whee! That'll do. That is a nice carp. I reckon that's a good way to round up day one. Well, check that one out. A proper Billy's Lake banger. This was the second part of that mad flurry. We got the other one out. He was a much smaller fish, just treated him and slipped him back. He was kicking right off on the mat, let me tell you. But look at that as we go into the first evening. A really, really distinctively pretty Billy's Lake Mirror carp. Might have been hot today, but the effort of keeping that bait going out there, rechucking the rods, that is definitely the reward that I was after. Off he goes. Haha, that'll do. Good morning, and what a good morning it is as well. Not just because we've just got a fish in the net, but because it is also a lot cooler than what it was yesterday. The wind has swung, it's blowing right into our face now. Now it's a northerly wind, which isn't normally a wind that you would get at this time of year, and the fish have followed it massively. Now that fish that I just caught was in a lot shorter than the spot that I found yesterday. I literally just flicked a lead out, found another smooth area, put some bait out, we've had a bite. But typically we didn't get any of the playing action, but that is for a very good reason, because Brad was round meeting competition winner Andy, who won a competition with us a few months ago, to come out on a session with myself. So what better time and what better place to do it than here up at Norton on Billy's. So he's just getting his gear out of the van now. I'm going to have a little look at this fish that I've just landed, which is another really, really nice Billy's Lake Mirror. And then I'm going to focus my attention on Andy, get his rods out, and hopefully he can also catch his very first carp from Billy's Lake. Well, here he is, the fish that I landed when Brad was round meeting Andy. Another absolutely stunning Billy's Lake Mirror carp. All of the fish that we've had so far have been in tip-top condition. They really are immaculate, fast-growing carp. But I'm going to slip this one back. The sun has now decided to poke its head through the clouds and it is warming up rapidly. I'm going to nip down the shop, grab a few fresh cherry cokes, and I'm going to come back and we're going to get Andy sorted. Lovely. There it goes. Lovely. As they just disappear into that clear water so quick. So we're just with Andy now, he's all set up. First things first, as I always do, look for a spot. Now we've already had a few chucks, found a nice area out in front of us, it's clipped up. So Andy's just having a little chuck around now just to feel what he's fishing over. Something that he's not done a great deal of in the past, and it is something that a lot of people not necessarily struggle with, but they just find it hard to do. So we're at the clip now. Well, hopefully it hits the clip. There we go, we're at the clip now. So he's going to feel that down, and he'll feel that then through the rod tip. He's just going to have a nice little pull back. And what we're looking for is the cleanest area that we can find. And the area that we found is nice gravel. So that lead will just bounce back over that gravel. And that's going to be our starting point. Once we've found the spot and we're happy with it, we're going to wrap the marker up, or the spod rod up, should I say. And then we're going to wrap the fishing rods up. But because of the depth of water that we're fishing here, we're going to wrap up exactly the same, because we're spodding with braid and we're fishing with mono. So you will get a little bit of stretch in the mono when the leads do hit the clip down on the spot. So that will sort of naturally counteract the tiny little bit of swing back that you're going to have. And then we're just going to go in nice and simple, exactly what I've been doing out on the front of Cider Island. We're going to do exactly the same in this peg, and hopefully we can get ourselves a couple more bites. Sit rod to the side, bang on. That's it. Then once that's gone down nicely, now that has. Then we get the last one. We can either put the last one in the middle or just to the left. Sit rod to the side, bang on, that is. That's good. Yeah, bang on, perfect. That'll do. So I'm just going to show Andy now the bait that I've been using for this trip, but more importantly, why I think it's important to use a mix like this, not only here at Norton, but anywhere that you go fishing. So first of all, it's very simple. My fishing, as I've said a lot of times before, is very, very simple. Now, one of the rules here at Norton is you're not allowed to spot over zigs. Having fished day tickets for a large number of years, I know it's going to sound obvious this, but the fish grow very quickly in day tickets. I know there's a lot of anglers that fish these types of lakes, but for how big the fish get, for how regular the carp come out, these fish have to be eating and getting away with it either on the bottom or they're eating the bait before it gets down to the bottom. Now, one thing that I've done a lot of in the past is spodding over zigs. It's a great way of bringing fish up off the bottom. They're in and around the cloud and they're snatching at the bits of foam that you're putting out. Now, obviously here at Norton, you're not allowed to do that. But the mix that I've got is very similar to what I'd use anywhere else. It's mulched up boilies, pellets, and sweet corn. Now, fish are reared on pellets. It makes perfect sense to use them here because they're young fish. Sweet corn, it's got the visual aspect to it. It's super, super sweet. And it's about as natural bait as you're going to use without using a natural in terms of maggot, worm, and a caster. Now, the mulch boilie, the reason why I think that's one of the most important things is when a lot of people are spomming out, certainly up here, they're adding pellets to their mix. When you're adding pellets to your mix, it's drying out a lot of the other bits and pieces in the mix. Therefore, it's sinking a lot slower. So my theory is that these fish have conditioned themselves, even though Billy's here is only sort of 7 to 9 foot deep where we're fishing, is I think that they're eating the bait on the way down. But because you can't fish, obviously, with a zig underneath it, you're never going to know. But the fish grow in here so free, like they grow so well and they grow so big that they must be eating that bait. So this is a real simple mix. Mulched up boilies, it's obviously soaked in water, other liquids, I put calanus liquid in with these, mulch up the krill, it's really heavy. When the spom hits the water, that bait is going to get to the bottom as quick as what it possibly can do. Unless you're ground bait balling it in, that's going to be the heaviest mix that you can physically put out to be able to get to the bottom. But another thing that's worth noting, well, there's a couple of things really. When using pellets, they're obviously dry. They absorb water like there's no tomorrow. So a lot of people make up their mix, tip the pellets in, leave it at the front of the swim. They dry all of the other bits and pieces out that you've got in your mix. But what they also do is they go really stodgy. And then you're basically spomming out what is effectively a sloppy mix, because when they go stodgy, they break down really quickly and then you're putting out almost like a pulp. So much like if I'm using natural baits, when I'm using pellets, I'll only make up as much mix as what I need at a time. So it's not at the front of the peg, it's not baking, the pellets aren't drying the rest of the bait out, and more importantly, they're not going down to a pulp. But what it does do as well is by adding a little bit of water when you make the mix, leaving it settle for 10 minutes. Basically, the pellets take on a little bit of moisture. Lovely. And it just enables them to sink a lot faster. So again, like the fishing that I do, it's very simple, but it's understanding why you do each thing. So you could make up any mix, chuck it out there, but I always like to ask myself the question, why have I done that? And I think if you can ask yourself that question and you can answer it in your own head, I just think it makes your fishing so much more fluent and you have a much better understanding of not only what you're doing here, but you can take it to anywhere. So there, mate, very simple, but like I say, know why you're doing something rather than just because, oh, it looks good. You know, there's a purpose behind this mix. Yes, I know it works really well. It's tried and tested everywhere that I've been. But here at Billy's, you're not allowed to spot over zigs. It's boiling hot. A lot of the fish are up off the bottom. The last thing I want to be doing is creating an area up in the water for them to feed. Ultimately, I want them down on the bottom where I'm fishing and catching some carp. So let's get this in the water.
Speed.
And we'll get you a bite, hopefully. Yeah. It's going to happen. Trust me, it's happening. Good enough to eat myself. Right, we're just getting a little bit of bait out. Ooh, just get in position. As you can see, I am filling up the spom. I don't do this for everybody. Brad don't even do this for me. And just getting the bait out on the spot. Now, it's important when you're spomming to always sort of overcast the spom. Like you're gonna try and put another 10 yards on the cast because you want them to hit the clip every time. Because if you start laying bait all over the place, the area that you're feeding then becomes big. And you want to sort of hone them into one area. There we go. Rod to the side. That's it. Always put the rod to the side, and then when it hits the clip, go forward in a real sharp motion. And what that does, as you hit the clip, throw the rod forward, nose dive the spom, obviously they're front opening devices, hits the water, bait comes out. And I always leave it for a couple of seconds as well, just so that bait can come out of the spom. You see a lot of people, they drag them back straight away. There's massive vortexes, and all that does there is it just keeps the bait up in the water and it drags it. And the last thing you want to be doing is dragging it this way. If it was dragging it left and right, it'd be all right, but dragging it this way is not good because that's going to be going up your leaders. Fish are going to be coming into contact with it, and rather than creating a safe place for them to feed, you're going to create a bit of a danger zone because they're going to be feeding all over your lines. That's it, rod to the side. But sometimes it doesn't matter how much you think you know and what you try, they just don't have it, and that has been the case today. We've had a go on the top, We've spotted up, and he's done an expert job of spotting up on his spot, 3 over the top. I've chopped and changed. I've even chucked a couple of rods out in the peg that's behind us, up against some weed where there was quite a few fish milling around, and just nothing. I mean, it has been probably near on 30 degrees today, which is a lot hotter than what we're used to, certainly here in the UK, and of late anyway. And I think the fish have just been enjoying it. Andy's now on sausage duty. Yes, we're hoping now the weather sort of cooled down a little bit, that maybe the action might start. You know, the rods are out there. We will redo them before it gets dark. You know, even when it's fishing slow, again, something else that a lot of people say is, how do you know when to redo them? It's fishing slow, or it's slowed down because of the heat, but sometimes a recast and a rebait can bring a bite on. So we're going to eat, let the food go down, have a coffee, bring all the rods in, fresh hook bait, back out on the spot, a little bit more bait over the top, and we'll see what the night brings. But for now, sausages are on the menu. So I've swung the rods around tonight, and I'm fishing the left-hand side of Cider Island now. The wind's been pushing down into this bay, which is the deeper end, but there's loads of weed along the margin, and today a lot of fish have sort of pushed into that weed away from the angling pressure. Now, fishing near weed, certainly at night, is never the dumb thing to do, so I've come away from it by a good few rod lengths, and I found a really nice clear spot, probably about 8 or 9 foot. All 3 rods are back out there, exactly the same rigs as what I've already been using and catching on. I'm just about to put 10 bombs over the top, and I'm going to go into my bivvy and I'm going to lace myself in mozzie repellent, because I'm getting absolutely bitten to high heaven here, and hopefully we're going to get ourselves another Norton carp. Let's do it. Well, how about that then for a way to start the morning? Another fine Billy's Lake mirror carp. For sure the biggest of the trip, this one. And it is in fact the 4th different spot that I've now had bites from. But between us, we have caught from 5 different spots, because whilst I was fast asleep last night, Andy managed to put one on the board as well. So all round, it has been an absolutely fantastic session, but it is due to be another scorching hot day today. So I think we are going to wrap it up fairly early. I don't think this is going to be the last carp, but if it is, what a fish to end on. Lovely. Off you go, my son. Well, it's all systems go this morning. One thing that I have learned from the few times that I fished up here at Norton is mornings is the best time. Now, I had a really nice mirror from the other spot that I was fishing, and the wind sort of swung again a little bit. So I've just gone back to a spot that I was fishing yesterday, 3 rods back out there, a bit more bait, and whilst I was doing that, Andy's had another bite, and as you can see now, I'm also into another fish. So it had royally kicked off this morning. I'm going to concentrate on getting this one in, because Andy's got his one in the net, which is a rather nice 20+ mirror. The average size of fish has been really good, and I'd like to try and get this one in. Whee. That's a good one. That is a better fish, that one. I think he's bigger than the one this morning, and the one this morning was the biggest one of the trip. Oh yes. Well, here's Andy's fish then, 22 pound and 10 ounces, right result. So Andy's now had a couple. I had that really nice one this morning, and I think to end, we have just caught the biggest of the trip, which is in my landing net there. So yeah, the sun is up now, it is getting rather warm, and I think definitely now is the right time to hit the road and call it a day. What a great trip it's been. Andy's learnt loads, his casting's come on load, baiting, everything like that. And hopefully next time when he goes out, he'll catch even more carp. Well done, Andy.
Thank you.
Lovely. Well, how about that one then to end what has been an action-packed but a rather hot session here at Norton Disney on Billy's Lake. I don't know how many bites we've had between us, multiple bites, all of a real good average size, and such a nice looking bunch of fish as well. Nice and easy fishing as well, which is what it's all about. Come up here, we've caught fish from 5 different spots. You know, when we see fish show, flick out, find a clear spot, put a bit of bait over the top, and you can get bites. And I think that's the same right the way across this complex. It really is a great complex, and it's been really good to get up here for our very first CineCarp shoot. Hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next one.